they're undressing each other. We see Bill naked. It's like it's kind of it kind of looks like what do you expect like your mailman to look like naked?
Or Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He does have he's got a Neil deGrasse bod.
Welcome to the Grande Bouffe.
The big feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Good evening, Mike Lacy. How are you doing?
What's going on, Cole? It's been a while. Good to see you again.
Yay.
It's been a whole week.
We finally gotten around to Fassbinder in Season 2. We didn't have any Fassbinder in Season 1.
It's very on brand, but we've been saving it.
I wonder if people will be excited that we're talking about a Fassbinder film or just not caring.
Have you seen the shirts they sell at IFC where they have directors' names and
they're done like in a heavy metal style
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like the one that says Fassbinder, but it's like a Metallica. Is that who?
Yeah, I think it's the Metallica one.
And there's another great one for Buñuel where it's a Bauhaus design and it's got the straight razor at the bottom. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
I like that one. Yeah. I gotta get that one. I really like the
just a Herzog shirt. I think it's
Buñuel.
a Danzig.
Yeah, see, I can't even go that far because I just hate Danzig so much. That's a bridge too far. The Fassbinder thing I can hang with, but I want the Buñuel myself. Buñuel in the Bauhaus design. That's classic.
All right, so what did we watch? We watched a Fassbinder movie. We watched The Marriage of Maria Braun
with Hannah Scheiguler.
You looked that up, right?
Yes.
You got it.
Hannah Scheiguler.
I heard you going through like 6 different pronunciations, and we're like, no, that's a robot. No, that can't be right. And then finally we just heard one, like, oh, that's got to be it. Yeah.
And she was one of Fassbinder's recurring actresses, as he liked to surround himself with a troupe of players that he would use in everything. And so she was also in The Bitter Tears of Vetcher von Kant, which is amazing movie. But this movie made in 1979, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. And
it's post-war Germany, and Hannah Scheiguler plays a woman whose husband gets hauled off. She's just married him maybe that day or the day before. They haven't even had sex yet, and he gets.
Well, it opens right like they're getting their certificate stamped and there's bombs dropping on. Is it Berlin? It's a city and it's just the end of the war and it's just everything's going to hell.
Yeah,
and it starts real heavy metal. It starts real fucking kick-ass and crazy and apocalyptic with like whip hands, and it's really intense. And then the movie kind of turns into just a sort of just bizarre, interesting period piece that's very like it's both like well paced and then it takes like these large leaps, and it feels like it's based on a novel, which I like don't believe it is, but it kind of has that episodic.
Yeah, it does have an epic quality to it. I think Fassbinder really lucked out. There were a couple of writers that wrote the screenplay for it, I believe, and I will perhaps give you their names.
Well, while you're doing that, let me talk about this beer.
Yes, please.
This is the exact kind of ridiculous beer that I actually like a lot. This is not a craft beer per se, but it's imported from Germany, which is why it caught my eye. But it's a Hefeweizen grapefruit beer from Schofferhofer.
It's so fruity. It's refreshing.
It's legitimately kind of like you could have this at lunch and like bounce back to work and just be kind of giddy, and you got a little pink mustache. Yeah, and it would improve everything.
Yeah, the pink mustache.
You don't think a pink mustache would improve everything?
Gee, that sounds like a loaded question, Mike. It really does sound like a loaded question.
Now that I'm saying it, that's gotta be some sort of euphemism, right?
But now that you've asked it, I'm yes, and that's the answer. Yes,
Yeah.
right. It does. That would improve everything. A pink mustache. That's you hit the nail on the head.
We're not going to say what a pink mustache is,
But I think we all know, and it will.
We all know. We all know.
And it will brighten your day. 2.5%. So yeah, you. Just as this wonderful beverage is brightening our evening.
I think it's less than like a kombucha.
No, I think it's a little more than a booch.
This movie reminded me a little bit of Maria. It's sort of effervescent and bubbly, but if you have enough of it, you could, in theory, overdose. In
theory, you could have to pee a lot.
In theory, yeah.
You would have to go to the restroom and relieve yourself of much pee. It was, and I say that because, well, not really because, but in coincidence, Pea Froelich is one of the screenwriters, and Peter Marschheimer is the co-writer.
Here's my thing about German.
Yeah.
Just say it with confidence. Sounds right.
Peter Marschheimer.
Marschheimer. Yeah. You know what? I'll take that back. I don't think that was very convincing.
No, that was not such a good move. So it was made in 1979. Rainer Werner Fassbinder, quite a prolific filmmaker. I think he made somewhere around 40 movies. Well, as a writer, he's credited on IMDb with 48 projects. They're not all necessarily long-form movies, and he directed 44 credits, including television and other things. But he passed away, I believe, in 1982, and so this film was made in 79 when he was just cranking out movies. I'm looking at 1978 to 79. We're all good at 1980. He made Germany in Autumn, Despair, In a Year with 13 Moons, 1978, The Marriage of Maria Braun, 1979, The Third Generation, 1979, and then Berlin Alexanderplatz, a 14-episode TV miniseries in 1980. So
I have a bottle of tequila that's been in my freezer for about a year and a half.
He was doing a lot of cocaine, not tequila.
I'm just saying, I can't go through like a fifth of vodka in a year, and this man can do 1.5 movies in that amount of time.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so
you think it's coke? You think it's dedication? You think it's just the fervor of creative genius?
No, when he died, he called a friend of his and he said, this is my last coke line, or my last line of coke, meaning that he was overdosing, that he was just going for it. He was going out.
He said
big.
that before he took that one.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Sad.
So it was the coke. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So that brings us to this story, and the character, the main character, what is her name? It's
Maria.
Oh yes, of course, Maria Braun. How do you know? What do you know? She's living in abject poverty in post-war Germany.
Yeah.
And
she's with some family members.
And her new soldier husband, Herman, is gone. Doesn't think she'll ever see him again.
And it's a really interesting
He's
look.
hauled off and it's over.
It's a window that we don't see. We see films about post-war America, but we don't see what the devastated Germany was like. And one thing that's interesting is the Nazis are discussed, but they're a derogatory term. There's not swastikas everywhere.
Right.
They're back to being Germans again.
Right.
They're Germans without things. And she's walking around with some other women with photos of her husband literally taped to a sign on her back because there's not Facebook, And it reminds me of remember 9/11. People would there would be like kiosks and stuff, and people would just cover it with photos of missing people.
Yep.
And this was just this is a window I never imagined. This is the best way to just tell people that you're looking for your husband, and maybe you'll get word that he's coming back, maybe you don't.
And the city's bombed out. Everything is just hellish, and it's going to take many years for things to be rebuilt. So she she sets about trying to improve herself and trying to reinvent herself into someone successful, somebody who can thrive in this social reality. And the first thing that she does, or one of the first things that she does, is she gets a job as a dancer at this impromptu nightclub of sorts that caters to American soldiers. It's the dime a dance routine, where the soldiers.
She's not a go-go dancer. She's a.
She will dance with you. She is a co-dancer, or I guess, or a partner. She's a dance partner. She's a rentable dance partner.
Yeah, so there's a lot of GIs there. There's a lot of black GIs there, including the one that she eventually shacks up with.
And this is a very, this is obvious for obvious reasons. Fassbinder is throwing you in the scalding hot water right away, because post-war Germany, it was all fought over
racial purity.
Racial purity, absolutely.
And see, we haven't mentioned it. She looks like a
poster girl for Aryan femininity.
We were just talking about. I know you haven't seen in the third Indiana Jones. There's an Aryan sort of archetype who's like a main character, and she's a lot like that actress. She's just blonde. I assume blue eyes. I don't know. Can you tell?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she has blue eyes.
But yeah, she's sort of the poster girl of Aryan, and she's with not only an American but a black GI, and
so she takes up with this black GI. He's kind of an overweight, kind of a goofball guy. But he has. It seems, at least, that he has best intentions, and they're having a pretty good. They have a little good thing going.
And he's like. He's not real charming.
Nope.
He's not a looker. But a thing that this movie has already established, because we're like 30 minutes in the movie at this point, is there's no men. And there's no progress. And there's
a whole lot of nothing going on.
There's not a way to get out of this, but you just can sort of see the war goggles go in these women's eyes. And like, I'm sorry, he's from America. He's in the military.
Right.
He's the best looking man I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and he's kind.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. He's not a mean person.
Yeah, he's not. So, like, the German men that didn't die at war that were around were weirdos that didn't go to war, Like, we see this man who's just trying to steal wood, like, from the side of, like, a dilapidated house, and there's children throwing cherry bombs at him.
Right.
And he calls the little kids Nazis and drives away.
Yeah.
And Maria turns to her friend who's in most of the movie, and I wasn't sure if they were relations or not, but she turns to her and she's like, "There's no men left. That's who we got. We got these weird dudes stealing wood." So, the GI Bill, I believe, is his name. They're learning each other's languages. It's pretty cute.
Yeah.
But shit goes down.
And the scene that Mike and I are about to discuss, you certainly should not listen to this podcast if you haven't seen the movie. Go ahead and watch the film. It's on Filmstruck. Shout out to Filmstruck, amazing movie streaming service that combines Criterion and Turner Classic Movies. And they pull from a lot of other great distributors like Janus and Kino Lorber and stuff too. So there's just an incredible wealth of great stuff that you can see. Oh, this is Janus.
Yeah.
And so this scene that we're gonna talk about is it's a stunner. It's a jaw-dropping scene.
Yeah, the climax is also bizarre, but in any case, she's with Bill and they're undressing each other. They've already spent a night together, and just to jump back a tiny bit, the sex scene that we saw with them, where it's just sort of like super close shots of their nude bodies covered in sweat, like not moving, just like caressing each other. It's just like very like beautiful and like strange and
artsy,
kind of more intimate than people like going at it.
They're
undressing each other. We see Bill naked. It's like it kind of looks like a what do you expect like your mailman to look like naked?
Or Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He does have. He's got a Neil deGrasse bod. Shows
total
up?
Dad bod, yeah.
Who shows up?
Could it be? Is it?
But he was dead.
No, he's not. He's standing in the doorway watching. He's not even doing anything. He's
just
watching.
Straight up watching.
He's standing in the doorway.
It's Herman.
Watching. Herman has returned.
And
unannounced from the war.
And Herman comes in. So I read a plot synopsis to just to like have this jog to my memory, and they describe it as the two men struggle, and Maria hits Bill over the head, like violently killing him.
She hits him with a bottle, doesn't she?
Yeah. So it's really weird because Herman's not clearly. He strikes Maria.
Yeah.
And she's like almost knocked out, which is not. That fight isn't choreographed perfectly, but it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then he and Bill kind of, and Bill's totally naked. They just sort of, like
wrestle.
Yeah, like not even intensely. It's weird. Like this scene,
it's very stagey.
Yeah, and it could
very artificial.
And it could have wound up being a three-way. Like that's not implausible of where it would maybe have gone. But Maria trying to sort of save Herman hits Bill over the head with a bottle, which we smash cut to a military tribunal because the Allies are in charge of Germany now, and she's in a bilingual tribunal, is being held for his murder. And I'm a little bit like, is that how bottles work? But Bill's dead, and sulking around is Herman, who, and this is sort of the catalyst for the rest of the film's dynamic. He takes the fall for her.
Mm-hmm.
And
he sure does.
Gets locked up.
Yeah, and so he goes to the pokey for a very long time, and it's up to Maria to figure things out because she is a loyal woman. She is so loyal to Herman, and so she sets about
just bettering herself, finding the next
to make as much money as she can so that she can buy a house for them to live in when he gets out.
So I kind of want to juxtapose this movie to another movie about a woman using her sexuality to get ahead, but which has a very different tone to it and sort of critique of her, which is Babyface. The Barbara Stanwyck movie we covered last season on the Grande Bouffe.
With the great Thelma Adams.
Yep. And Babyface really seems, and I mean, that was made 40 years earlier than this one, maybe 30.
Yeah.
Is very cynical of, less so than you'd think, but it at least kind of is seeming like it's very critical of a woman using her sexuality. This is more ambiguous.
Yeah, I think it's it's definitely a proto-feminist film, and there's a lot of feminist ideology that you can draw out of this picture, and so Fassbinder is certainly not judging this character. If anything, he's admiring this person because she is such a survivalist that she is able to, on a whim, pick up this. Is he Swiss? The Swiss industrialist that she seduces on the.
She thought he spoke French. He didn't speak French.
Right. Yeah. So, but he's on a German train doing business in Germany, and she recognizes all the hallmarks of somebody who's a maverick of industry, and she very cleverly inures herself into his company.
Well, so here's why it's different than Babyface. Babyface is she's kind of like Don Juan in Barbara Stanwyck's character because she's saying all.
Wait a minute, Don Juan?
Yeah. So
what do you mean by that?
Well, let me tell you.
I'm
So Don Juan doesn't seduce women by saying like, "Hey, who cares? It's just sex. It's not a big deal." He says, "I'm gonna marry you," and that's kind of Barbara Stanwyck's angle is like she's gonna seduce you, but she's also going to make it seem like she's gonna do it above board and is playing by the rules. What's different about Maria and why I think she really is like a feminist heroine is she is completely straightforward about what she wants.
Oh yeah,
she develops this relationship with this wealthy man, and she's like, "I'm not gonna marry you. I like you.
Yeah,
you know, or
she's his mistress."
Yeah, and she's like, and that's how I want it.
Yeah,
you know, and she does hide somewhat not somewhat, but she hides her relationship with Herman. But those almost like boundaries that I respect.
Well, he's in prison. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, what is there to hide? It's already
If you're
hidden.
telling someone like you're gonna get this much of my heart and of like my being,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need to tell them why.
No.
You know, if you're saying you're gonna give them your all, and then
Well,
you're hiding something that's
not to
different.
mention that she's really helping his business. She brings
amazing.
it. Yeah.
This movie's kind of bizarre in that she just shows up and talks and sasses her way into kicking ass. And there's one scene that I think has like the secret to what this movie's about, and I don't get it because I don't know post-war German politics very well. But it's when she's playing off the accountant of her her lover's company with her old friend, the husband. That's the husband of her old friend, right? Who is involved in the labor unions.
Yeah.
And she's playing them off each other, and you realize like she's just kind of having fun.
Yeah.
Like she like learned these buzzwords and she's just doing it, but like she doesn't really have skin in the game exactly. And it's just this vibe of like all I do is win. Like I just show up and I kick ass.
Yeah. It's
They're also building a wall in that apartment. Did you notice that? I found that this is where I was starting to piece together what some of the political commentary would be, which we can get into in a second. But there's
between East and West Germany, you mean?
Yeah. So like in this apartment, they're like it's like under construction,
right?
But they're building a wall, and I wondered if that there is, to get into a little bit. I wonder if there's commentary about this woman being split between these different men of different nationalities, and if this is sort of somewhat of a metaphor for the way Germany was.
I can see that. I think that's valid. Yeah, sure, that's there definitely. So really, the problem, Maria's dilemma, is that she's so good at what she does that, and she transforms herself so efficiently that when it's finally time for her to have everything that she's worked so hard for, she can't let herself have it.
Yeah, her and Herman in this final sequences have this very. They're kind of like opposite magnets in a certain way. Like he really is her match, and he's this man who's so good. He went to jail for it seems like you're not clear at the time. 15 years.
I don't know. It was a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. He went to he took the rap for this woman. Didn't seem to blink twice at it, and love is discussed in the context of them in this extremely grand, over the top way, and he's also developed a relationship with like her millionaire husband, and everyone is leaving each other the money and the will because they're just so
they're so jealous and petty. All of her family are
but everyone's so sublimely charitable and loving.
They're so jealous because she has somehow gone out and done this, and so they hate her.
Maria's also grown very cold-blooded in here. It's a woman who had literally nothing and now kind of has everything, but she seems to be almost like mentally ill at the end. She has this extreme cruel streak, which
and she doesn't know how to be anymore. She dresses up all sexy for her husband, but she doesn't. There's no motivation behind it. It's just a costume.
And he's like, so when do I get to spend the night with my wife that I've been in jail this whole time for? And she's like, here's what we do. We go to the country, okay? Let me go get dressed. And he's like, and he's kind of like, can we just fuck? Like,
He's ready to
get out of jail.
Yeah, he's ready to just do it on the couch.
And everything has to be a game. Everything has to accelerate. And so it reminded me of this kind of mentality I see from like my grandparents, which they developed from the Depression. It's not a direct relationship, but it's like you had to become a certain kind of person to survive the Depression, which made you a big, frustrating weirdo in the 60s and 70s when you were raising my parents.
That's right.
And she's developed these techniques that kept her alive and totally worked. But now it's like she can't just like have a relationship.
Yeah, she sold her soul. That's what happened. She retrained her soul, and now she doesn't have it anymore. And that's It's a tragedy. It's definitely and you get that sense from the title, "The Marriage of Maria Braun." It has that haunting quality where you just sense this is a tragedy, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you're not expecting like the marriage of Maria Braun. It was great. Yeah, so it's like the big arc of it, to take a step back, and I haven't fully done it, but she gets married with this man for 2 days, and they're immediately separated, and he becomes sort of deified, and also, but more than that, their relationship is deified, and I think what she's doing is she's creating this distance to have something to yearn for, to like strive for, is the reunion between them, and it's fueling her in kind of like a divine obsession. It allows her to imagine something greater, but then when you get it, it's like he's just a dude.
Well, there's an ongoing thread that you see in films, in this movie and Claude Chabrol's Story of Women with Isabelle Huppert, where the soldier husband unexpectedly returns, and
That's a trope, man.
and it's never gonna work. You can't go back, and so there's that element to the story where once the soldier has gone to battle or whatever, they cannot come back.
And this movie makes a point. He's like, he's going to be broken, which I think is the trip that you see a lot. He comes back and he's got PTSD and he's fucked up.
Yeah.
She's also been liberated in a way that's novel for like in the history of time. You know, the 20th century was a completely novel time for women on the planet venturing into like parts of society that they had never seen before, and sort of being allowed to explore themselves psychologically. In this movie, especially like sexually. And so, what is it going to be like to go back into that marriage? And instead of just this being a short movie, like, and then they get divorced, it's like they elongate it for 15 years. And it's almost like she unconsciously planned on pinning a murder on her husband to distance him, and then to be this beautiful lover who...
The long con.
Yeah. Yeah, the long con, to just drive yourself insane, though.
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's true.
To drive yourself so crazy you become like a millionaire.
Yeah.
And so, what do you make of the ending?
Well, I love it because Rainer Werner Fassbinder, card carrying member of New German Cinema, he throws that. He throws that Buñuelian bomb at you at the end, and I like it. I think it's very effective, and it certainly makes you contemplate everything that you've seen. It really makes you think about the story and what went wrong and when did it go wrong.
Yeah, no, let's not say exactly what happens, but I think we can talk around it.
Yeah,
the idea that it was an accident makes you just think about the arc of all of our lives, and like what are we working towards? If it can just be taken away right before we get the last like bit of what we're actually hunting for. Like,
yeah, there's certainly an existential argument in there.
Yeah,
an argument for existentialism or existential existence.
And if there's like intentionality to what happened, then it's just very dark. That what I would take from it is kind of what I was saying, is that our exact behaviors that help us survive will lead to like self-destructive tendencies. Like when they're stopped being helpful, we sort of have nothing to live for.
Well, yeah, and also there are things that you can recover from, and there are things that you think you recovered from, but you were really just prolonging something, and you didn't recover at all.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's like it's funny to think about someone who had been through terrible adversity and then rose above it, and then being kind of even more fucked up for that. In like the scene where she's screaming at her secretary and she's just this totally cruel employer, which is, how many times have you had a terribly cruel employer or just seen something like that in the world? You try to like project your head into it, but to think like, oh, maybe she's survived a world war, was starving and her husband died, came back, and there's all these things happened to her, and now she's somewhere successful in life, and almost because of that success is even more fucked up. Like that's another level of empathy to have for a person, which is it's possible that if you just stayed in that struggle, you might be a more sort of psychologically healthy person in a way.
A more balanced person.
More balanced, if not for survivor's guilt or something like some buzzword like that.
Well, I think it's always important to draw a corollary between the movie and our current political times.
How can one not?
And so I think we look at the industrialist, who in this case had his German mistress and still wanted more, but he in the end, much like Michael Keaton's character in The Founder, about what's the guy's name? The McDonald's guy.
The
Ray
Kroc.
Ray Kroc. Yeah. So you got Donald Trump.
Have you seen that?
I saw it last night. Terrible.
I mean, how are you going to make a movie that McDonald's endorses that's going to be palatable?
It's there's so many things wrong with it. But anyway, so there you go. The wealthy industrialist will always be wealthy and industrial, evidently.
You know what it reminds me of too is There Will Be Blood.
Yep.
You know, if there's one thing that Daniel Plainview is, it's a survivor.
Right.
You know, that first scene he gets almost destroyed and he climbs out, and another thing he'd be a hero, but that exact genetic makeup or you're just being forced psychologically until your conscience is like your brain is turned into like a diamond, and that will is unbreakable. You lose your feelings,
Yeah, you lose your humanity. And that's how it is. And I think it seems like a lot of people have lost their humanity.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yeah, I do watch those post-war scenes and just, I hope I'm being overly dramatic.
Yeah.
Right? I would love nothing more than to listen to this in 5 years and be like, that was quite ridiculous to fear that we'd live in some bombed out Hollywood version of New York City in the not too distant future.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's irresponsible to not contemplate fears like that.
Yeah, and the real story is it takes so long to rebuild and to recover, and you never do. So, yeah, it's It is what it is, and it's not what it's not, as William S. Burroughs would say.
Well, I would say go watch it, go see it. It'll make you think about things that are happening now, but it's also got some real weird out there scenes that I didn't expect to see in a movie.
It's written with the earnestness of anecdotal experience, and
right.
And there's a lot of details that just ring true in this movie, and it's on Filmstruck. Another shout out to Filmstruck. So if you've got Filmstruck, then you can easily just go into the little search bar and type in either Fassbinder or The Marriage of Maria Braun. I think there's a few other Fassbinder films on Filmstruck right now as well. Thank you all so much for listening. Please do us a favor and follow us and like us and share us so that the whole world listens to Le Grande Bouffe.
The Big Feast.